All right, there is a massive cosmic rebellion hidden right in the silent corners of ancient scriptural texts, and today, we're unpacking it. In this explainer, we're going to look specifically at the Seraphim, the burning ones, and uncover exactly why their bizarre, six-winged anatomy wasn't just for show. It was actually the ultimate defense mechanism against the greatest deception in the history of the universe.
Okay, let's dive right into this. When the Great Rebellion went down, the texts tell us that a massive chunk of the heavenly host actually abandoned their posts. They were whispered to, convinced, and completely corrupted by a being who had stood in the very presence of the Creator. But if you read the accounts closely, there is one specific group of beings that never shows up on the fallen list in any apocalyptic vision, not once. So the real question here is, why did this cosmic temptation fail so utterly with them?
Well, to understand the survivors, we've got to understand the fall first. According to the sources, Lucifer wasn't just some ordinary being. He was the most beautiful, the wisest, a leader who walked near the very throne of God with absolute authority and perfection. But a forbidden desire took root. He didn't want to be a servant anymore. He wanted the whole shebang. He wanted the eternal throne for himself. And what's truly wild here is that before he fell, God actually confronted him, practically pleading with him to return to the truth and step back into the light. But Lucifer rejected it. He chose his pride, which sparked a massive war in the heavens, where Michael and the faithful forces eventually defeated him.
And the scale of this deception? It's absolutely staggering. Lucifer didn't fall alone. He took a full 1/3 of the angelic host with him. He whispered to beings who were incredibly intelligent, beautiful, and powerful. He managed to introduce doubt right during their moments of internal reflection. But how on earth did he persuade so many, yet completely fail to sway the Seraphim? To find our answer, we have to take a trip back to the year 740 BC. This was the year King Uzziah of Judah died, a king who, by the way, started out strong, but grew so incredibly proud that he violated the temple and died totally isolated. Anyway, in the year of his death, the prophet Isaiah enters the earthly temple in Jerusalem. And suddenly, the physical structure just becomes transparent. Isaiah's vision pierces right through the stone and the wood, revealing the heavenly throne room that had literally always been there, just hidden from human eyes. And above that throne, he sees them.
He sees the Seraphim. Now, the word seraphim is plural. The singular is seraph, which comes from a root word meaning to burn. So we're not talking about your typical feathered angels from a Renaissance painting. No way. These are quite literally the burning ones. They're the absolute highest order of beings in the angelic hierarchy, and they exist entirely as flame. Their very nature is fire, and their worship is fire. They are directly plugged in to the ultimate holiness of God.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the exact number of wings they have. Most angels described in these texts, they've got 2, maybe 4 wings, but the seraphim, exactly 6. And the way they use these 6 wings isn't just some weird anatomical quirk. It's a loaded theological blueprint that perfectly explains why they are incorrectible. Let's break down this configuration.
First up, they use 2 wings to cover their faces. Think about the gravity of that for a second. These are beings made of pure, unadulterated fire, living closer to the throne than any other creature in existence. Yet even they can't look directly at the unfiltered glory of the Creator. They literally have to shield their eyes. This posture is just pure reverence. It's a constant physical acknowledgement of the massive gap between the Creator and the created.
Second, they use 2 wings to cover their feet. In ancient Hebrew culture, feet were considered the lowest, dustiest, most unworthy part of the body. So by covering their feet, these sinless, pure, burning beings are actively acknowledging their own unworthiness. They're constantly reminding themselves that whatever glory they carry is simply borrowed, and whatever light they shine is merely reflected. It's the ultimate humility, built right into their posture.
And finally, they use 2 wings to fly. This tells us they aren't just passive, stationary beings floating around on clouds. They are active, highly mobile servants. They're in a constant state of readiness, just waiting to spring into action and execute any mission sent from the throne.
Now, when we contrast this with the Great Rebellion, the whole thing just clicks into place. Lucifer's fatal flaw was his inward focus. He started looking at his own beauty, measuring his own brilliance, and basically cultivating a cozy little space for self-reflection and pride. But the Seraphim? With 2 wings covering their faces and 2 covering their feet, their anatomy literally leaves them no room to look at themselves. They are pointed entirely outward. They are completely absorbed in the one they were created to glorify, leaving absolutely zero soil for the seed of pride to grow.
So the crucial point is what they're actually doing while in this posture. They continuously cry out, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts." The Hebrew word for holy is kadosh, which means separate, other, or set apart. They aren't just calling God morally good, right? They are declaring his fundamental otherness. And in Hebrew, saying something 3 times, that's the absolute superlative. They are declaring him to be holiness itself.
But catch how they do it. The text says they cry this out to one another. They aren't engaged in some solitary, silent meditation retreat. This is a communal loop of fire. One cries out, which ignites the praise of the next, fueling this perpetual cycle of mutual exaltation. And because they're doing this constantly, there are no silent moments. There's no pause. There's literally no gap in their existence for a dark whisper to sneak in. Lucifer's strategy required a gap of discontent to exploit, but the Seraphim were already way too full of light for any shadow to land. And this brilliantly illustrates a really cool concept. Think of it like a roaring bonfire on a freezing night. As long as the flames are intensely hot, insects get repelled. They can't land on the wood. But the exact moment that fire dies down into lukewarm embers, boom, the insects swarm and consume the vulnerable wood. The protection is in the burning itself. The Seraphim remained completely untouched by the rebellion because they never let their fire cool. They were the absolute opposite of lukewarm.
And this intense burning worship doesn't just protect them, it purifies. When the prophet Isaiah saw this, the sheer, pure light of their worship instantly exposed his own brokenness, and he cried out in repentance. But in response, the seraph didn't preach at him or condemn him. Actually, scratch that, it was more like a rapid rescue mission. The seraph flew down with a live, burning coal from the altar and touched Isaiah's lips, purging his sin. The Seraphim are ministering beings. The exact same fire that fuels their unwavering devotion is the fire they use to cleanse and transform others. So, what does this all mean for us? What lessons can we extract from this ancient blueprint for our own lives today? Well, the sources suggest a highly practical posture of protection. First, audit your inward focus. Those areas of heavy self-focus, like obsessing over your self-image or doom-scrolling social media for comparisons, those are the exact cracks where anxiety and pride take root. Second, maintain a continuous outward orientation towards something much greater than yourself. And third, do it communally. You just can't maintain this kind of heat alone. Gathering with a community acts like a bellows, fanning the flames and keeping the fire hot enough to repel all those little whispers of doubt and bitterness.
The Seraphim survived the greatest rebellion in the universe simply because they refused to look anywhere but outward, completely consumed by the glory of their Creator. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on. In your own life, day to day, are you cultivating that inward focus that eventually falls, or are you cultivating the burning outward focus that stands forever? Thanks so much for joining this explainer, and keep questioning.